Dave, great to have you with us here at the Stock Exchange, albeit distanced because of Omicron. We'll get to Omicron in a moment, perhaps, and your treatment for it. But first and foremost, I mean, congrats on a great day and an update. What in particular do you think analysts welcomed in terms of where you were able to surprise them?
Yeah, thank you, Will, for having me on. It was a positive day here. We were primarily giving an R&D update today. We updated our 21 and 22 guidance, which actually has flat revenue because we have much lower expectations for our COVID antibody sales next year, and we have a key patent expiry on a oncolytic drug. But I think really the strength of the company's underlying growth based on our newer medicines, and then we updated on really the pipeline at Lilly, which is stronger than ever before. And of course, as you know, in our industry, that's the key to continuous growth. Is we have to keep reinventing our company over and over again because we do face patent expiries. So it's an exciting time at Lilly, and we shared that with the street today.
Let's touch on some of those, and maybe first of all on your Alzheimer's treatment. When can you expect significant revenues from that?
Well, we have a rolling submission in at the FDA, and we're replicating the first ever positive study in Alzheimer's, which read out last year. And that's the gold standard. We need to replicate that finding in a very large study. This one's more than 5 times the size of the prior one. We are under review for what's called an accelerated approval, which is a kind of contingent approval based on preliminary data. We hope to gain that by the end of the year. And then our final data will be available shortly thereafter, though, in the spring of 23. So really, what I think for investors and families and caregivers who are focused on Alzheimer's treatments and this kind of breakthrough, looking toward that ultimate data in 23 is key. Between an accelerated approval and that date, I think we expect modest revenues for a variety of reasons. But then if the study's positive, I think that really should change the standard of care in Alzheimer's.
Dave, looking broadly at the drugs that Lilly expects to be underpinning this better than expected revenue growth next year, I mean, these are drugs that treat diabetes, cancers, arthritis, migraines, and I'm wondering if you attribute the uptick in potential revenue to just simply the pipeline timing or to potentially delays in diagnosing some of these issues because of the pandemic, or if it's simply a matter of pricing and the ability to keep pricing high with limited competition.
I mean, it's really based on volume growth on a global basis. We have several new medicines, really 16 we've launched in the last 7 years. We expect to launch 5 new ones we highlighted today. We talked about Alzheimer's already, but a key one in lymphomas is under review now. Another one, tirzepatide in diabetes and later in obesity, and then some autoimmune drugs, really adding to that really fresh lineup from Lilly of new medicines that are changing the way we can care for these serious conditions. And the global rollout of those is kicking in a significant way this year and next. It's interesting you mentioned COVID. We still do face some headwinds in some of these therapy areas where patients through time are reluctant to go see their doctor for updates in their therapy or for tests that often trigger new drug initiation. I think that's kind of secular across the industry right now, and we have that as well. That may be a tailwind if Omicron becomes the last wave we face. I wouldn't hesitate to guess that. I would hesitate to guess that right now, but it's really the breadth of our lineup and volume-driven, reaching more patients with new medicines that are changing these diseases.
Well, on the question of drug pricing, Dave, I mean, that is a huge debate here in Washington where I sit. And looking at some of the prices of your drugs, Lilly's branded insulin drug costs $275 per vial. Lawmakers here are trying to cap the out-of-pocket cost of insulin per month at $35. Democrats want that to be for a bucket of insured people. Republicans are trying to press for it just to simply apply to folks on Medicaid and Medicare. But just generally, if a policy like that were to go through, what type of effect would it have on your bottom line?
Really none, because our policy already is to cap insulin price at $35. You mentioned the list price. I'm sure you know that price, which is really the price by which products move through the distribution system, is quite different from our net price. Net pricing for insulin we disclose is about $50 for the company. And we automatically cap all out-of-pocket costs for commercial plans, commercial patients, people with employer insurance at $35 right now. And so that's universal for Lilly insulin. And we piloted with the government, the last government, a program in Medicare Part D, the senior program, to do exactly the same thing. About half the seniors who use insulin are in that. So we're almost there with Lilly insulins already. So we welcome that policy. If they want to put it in, that's great, but it doesn't really move our needle too much for insulin. And I think this case study highlights kind of the misses in the rhetoric here at fixing the real underlying problems of affordability of medication, which we see first and foremost as an insurance problem. What is the coverage? And there's too many Americans with really poor drug coverage, too much out-of-pocket cost versus other health services. And then transparency, really showing what is the manufacturer making, what are the other actors taking as a percent of that to get the drug from the manufacturer to the patient. And we're very transparent with insulin. It's about $50 net a vial for us. That's quite a bit different from the list price, but I think that helps explain sort of what's happening behind the scenes. We're for both of those: better coverage, better transparency.